Joining me now is Charlie Hurt, the Washington Times opinion editor and a Fox News contributor. Charlie, so good to have you here.
Great to see
it's
you,
a fun time to be covering politics. We were talking about
yes,
that because there's a lot of craziness going on, but fun stuff to talk about. But I have never seen anything like it. I'm used to exaggeration. I grew up, by the way, inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C., so I grew up with all that stuff. But I've never seen these flat-out fabrications like this. Have you?
No, it's really insane. But I think that what it does is it sort of underscores just how desperate Democrats are. That they don't have anything to talk about that matters to voters. So they're sort of retreating to these areas where they just completely fabricate things. They make up things and they pretend that reality is not happening. But as these are when it comes to security and economics. Politicians cannot hide. You don't need, Labor Department statistics to tell you that you can't pay the bills or you can't fill your gas or it's a pain to fill up your grocery cart. You don't need statistics to tell you this stuff. It's very obvious, and these guys, they can't hide from it, so they make things up.
Well, I'd like to talk about that last point that we heard Biden talking about, that the Republicans are here to take over Social Security, and they're going to cut it based on how much you're getting from other retirement programs. That was a complete fabrication. And in fact, it was a fabricated screenshot that went out on social media. And liberal fact checkers, factcheck.org for one, came out and said as much. They said, none of the claims in the image spreading on social media appear in the commitment to America. That's the GOP plan. There's no proposal to bar retirees who have a pension, an individual retirement arrangement, or a 401k from collecting Social Security benefits in either the commitment to America or the RSC's proposed budget. That's what Senator Scott put together. So this was a pure fabrication. It was made up stuff. And the president is repeating it. I mean, don't people kind of pull at his shirt tail and say, Mr. President, you can't do that?
Yeah, no, and I don't think this is just some sort of one-off thing that's floating around the internet. It's far more coordinated than that. And it's not just Joe Biden talking about this. There are also House members that are running in House districts across the country who are talking about Social Security. All of a sudden, Barack Obama over the weekend suddenly started talking about Social Security. And there are two things going on here. One is that they're discovering that they put all their eggs in. Well, they tried to run against Trump, and that didn't work. So then they tried to run on abortion, and they realized that abortion's not working, and they have to talk about economics, because no matter how much Democrats want to talk about abortion or Trump, what voters actually care about right now are economics, and the economics are terrible. And then the Democrats ask themselves, so what is our message? Well, they have no answer. All of the problems, whether it's gas prices or inflation, are the fault of the policies of Joe Biden and Democrats. And since they have no response, no way to even enter the discussion to talk about economics, what do? They have to make up this gobbledygook nonsense, this pure fantasy about Social Security, and they talk about that, and they are all doing it at the same time this little thing is going around the internet. And you can't tell me that there isn't something coordinated at some level about that, because everybody started doing it at the same time.
Yeah, and I said his aides are pulling at the shirt tails, which is the wrong. They're actually feeding him this information, this false. Plus, I'm so glad you pointed out its policies. It's not just the fact that the president is off his game because he's too old, he's getting senile, et cetera. It's the fact that the policies themselves that are being pushed by people far younger than he are, who are these ideologues who believe in this crap that doesn't work, whether it's dealing with crime or whatever. That's what's really causing the mess that we're all living in right now.
Yeah, this is the utopia that Democrats have been promising. People like AOC have been promising. War on American energy independence, spending into oblivion. All of these things are the things that AOC, Democrats, and Joe Biden has been around long enough to know that stuff is dangerous and it doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work. But he's gotten sort of carted off with the circus because he's too spineless to stand up to him. Or maybe he's so far gone that he sort of believes in this stuff. I don't know.
Well, he is incapable sometimes of getting. I mean, for example, when he said that the price of gas is now lower than when I came into office. I mean, that clearly is not something that's fed to him because it's so objectively wrong. But when, on the other hand, when you hear from the White House press officer talking about how there are more leases now, oil leases, than ever before, which is just flat out not true. The Wall Street Journal was very clear about it. They did a big report finding out, in fact, that federal oil leases have slowed to a trickle, as they say. It's lower than it was back in 1948.
Yeah, and this is not some sort of sneaky hidden policy of Democrats and now Joe Biden. This is their stated policy. This is what they wanted to happen. Now they're complaining that they got their way, and but what turns out, what has happened is that everybody is miserable and wants to punish them for it. Now they're freaking out. But they should be doing an end zone dance, spiking the football, because this is the end of their policy prescription. This is what they've been talking about for years. They should celebrate.
Now, how much of the problems that we're now in can be turned around by a Congress because we've got another 2 years before we have an election for a president? I mean, what will happen in the 2 years before the presidential election?
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult for Congress to do major things to turn things around because Joe Biden shows no propensity whatsoever to be somebody who seems like he's going to learn a lesson and do what's best for the country.
He's not a Bill Clinton, in other words.
No, he's not a Bill Clinton. So I worry about that a lot, and I think that it could be a very dangerous 2 years because there's no telling what a guy who's that desperate might do between now and the end of his term. But what I do think is also interesting, and we were just talking about this, you know, the Republican map, I put the Republican Senate at 53 after this election, and if you forced me to go one way or the other, higher or lower, I would go higher. That's how devastating I think this is for Democrats. But this is what I think is interesting. This map that Republicans are dealing with this year is terrible. It's their worst map in a very long time. The map 2 years from now is much, much better. The map 4 years from now is even better than that. So what we could be looking at is a setup so that in 2024, whoever is the Republican nominee could be looking at and that Republican nominee will become president. And we could be looking at a situation where that Republican comes into office, comes into the White House with a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate.
Charlie,
and that's where things start getting done.
I'm getting a wrap, but I got to ask you about New York and the chances that Zeldin, he is definitely picking up steam. He's still behind Governor Hochul, but a lot of New Yorkers, you know, New Yorkers who might be inclined to vote for somebody like Zeldin, even if they're Democrats. They've moved to Florida. So
they left.
Is there a chance that the next governor of New York could be a Republican?
I think it's a real chance because the only thing more potent than people who vote on economics are people who vote on their family's safety. And New Yorkers are concerned about their family's safety.
Charlie Hurt, good to see you, my friend.
Great to see
Thank
you,
you very much. Appreciate it. Well, in